Guys, welcome to another episode of Love Lines. This week we have another episode on love and relationships, and this one is actually a question that someone sent me in the comments that I wanted to address in a video because I thought it would probably be helpful for more people rather than just replying to that person personally, which I did reply to them, but I said I was also going to do a follow-up video with a little bit more meat to it and a little more advice and recommendations that I could give as a therapist. So the question was, what advice would you give to someone who feels guilty in rejecting men? For example, if a man comes up to me and acts charismatic, but I'm not interested in them, but I would feel bad or guilty for rejecting them or walking away from them. I would think I'm being rude. I think generally women tend to be polite and men take it as interest. Does that mean we should stop speaking to men altogether? How to handle this better? Which I was so excited to see in the comments. I really do enjoy interacting with people in the comments, so if you do have any questions like this one, I'm happy to answer them in the comments or even make a video about them. So just let me know if you're interested in me making a video on a certain topic. But this question came up on one of my videos, which I really it was such a brave thing for someone to do, to just write a question based on their experiences. And this one kind of hit home a little bit because it felt like something I would have had issues with around or faced before I had therapy. And now that I've had therapy and I'm working with clients in these kinds of areas, these are things that I now know how to navigate around. And I'm never going to get it right 100% every time, but at least I have some tools and some questions that I ask myself when it comes to this. From this question, I could tell this person is maybe a people pleaser, and acknowledging that by even saying I feel like I'm being rude states that you're not you're not a rude person, because if you're being rude, a lot of the time someone would have told you you're being rude a lot of the time, and that's not the person who's you're being rude to. People around you would tell you that's rude. But I think from hearing this, it sounds like someone who's tends to be very polite with people, very friendly, and likes to have a good vibe about them and openness about them, but feels guilty when they have to put boundaries in place. And I feel like this question is a very good question around boundaries and how best to navigate those things. Being polite does not mean that you're open to accepting anything and everything. Being polite is you just being polite, and you can be kind to people and accept that you're nice to someone, but it doesn't have to go anywhere other than that conversation. For example, if you feel some sort of guilt around saying no, or guilt around rejection, it's probably a narrative that has been told to you in some shape or form. And this could be from feeling like you're not enough when it comes to your expectations of the kind of man that you want, for example, because you might want someone who isn't that person who's approaching you, and you feel bad for not giving them a chance because it's not what you want, but you're taking into account their feelings more than you're taking into account your own feelings. that could manifest in you being overly nice and overly accommodating for their feelings rather than accommodating for yourself, and how you feel about the whole situation. There's ways to accept a compliment, and just accept a compliment. So if a guy comes up to you and he's like, oh, you're a very beautiful girl, you can say thank you, I really appreciate that. But you don't have to, you're not obliged to say, oh, you're also a good looking guy. You're not obliged to give a compliment back. By just learning to receive is opening you up to having that conversation and just accepting that you're a beautiful woman. But I think sometimes we feel the need to kind of give something back. And this doesn't just show up in kind of romantic relationships, but it also shows up in friendships sometimes. If you find yourself around friends and you feel a dis-ease around someone paying you compliments, or you feel like that you have to like always be transactional in relationships, this could be a downfall on why people might think that you're being overly accepting of these kinds of passes from men that you're not attracted to. But this is just me speculating from my own experiences, which I also had. I had instances where I felt like I needed to say something back, because I can't just receive something, I need to also give. And I'm a natural giver in my life. I like to give to people, and I like to share my time, my effort, my thoughts with people. But sometimes when it came to a time where I had to learn that certain things I can just receive, and it doesn't need to be transactional, it doesn't need to be thrown back. It could just be received and appreciated, that someone thinks something of me. And this could be even at work. Like, there's times at work where I've said, I'm going to take on extra work just because I feel like I need to kind of help the other person, but really I don't have the capacity to do that. But because I want to manage the other person's feelings about how they see me, I accept it. Like I do those things, go above and beyond. And yes, sometimes in cases you do need to go above and beyond in the workplace. But if you're seeing these traits in workplaces, in friendships, it's also going to show up in romantic settings as well. So I would say, if you are feeling this kind of way when people do approach you, accept that you're a beautiful woman, and accept that it's okay to accept that, like, and you're enough for wanting more or expecting more from a relationship, or from a romantic partner, or from someone else, like if you want to take it further on to something else. But I think just normalizing that your standard is your standard is one way to kind of break this narrative of like, there's a guilt around saying no, because there must be some people pleasing aspects to you in other areas of your life that you might need to zoom in on and focus on, and try and understand why those are the things that you do, like, and why you feel like you need to manage other people's feelings. Another thing we need to also take into account with this kind of narrative is rejection is part of day-to-day life. Like, when we go into job interviews or apply for jobs and we get rejected, we don't take it personally, because we know there's competition out there. Just like the dating world, there's so much competition out there. So you rejecting someone is not a bad thing, and you shouldn't feel the need to have to be that. Because in your comment you did mention, generally you feel like women tend to be polite and guys take it the wrong way kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing. But I would also want to question, where does that mindset of being polite come from? What does polite look like to you? I feel like yes, you can be kind to people, and being kind is not a bad thing, but to have being polite and feeling guilty in the same kind of environment, that means there's a pressure that you've put on yourself, especially around men when it comes to this kind of topic. Because I don't feel like people get that pressure or that guilt when they're in this kinds of settings, when it's with friends. If a friend asks you to maybe borrow a dress or something and you say no, there's not much guilt around that. So what is your idea around men as well? How are you seeing men, and what is your narrative around men? And if you were in therapy with me, these are the kinds of questions we'll be exploring, like your people-pleasing tendencies. When did you first notice them? How old were you how old do you feel when you do have to say no? These are kinds of questions that kind of bring up the kind of environment that you were raised in or brought up in, to feel like no is such a hard word to say. And no is a full sentence. We've heard that so many times from like different shows, different speakers, but it's true. Just saying no is enough. And I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate things by trying to handle other people's feelings. And when we do start to get to that point where we're noticing that we're handling other people's feelings, we need to take into account that handling other people's feelings means that we're probably denying our own feelings, and we need to try and shift the mindset of what am I feeling and how do I feel about this situation. If you do not feel safe or comfortable with something, why should I give up my comfort in order for someone else to be comfortable? There needs to be an understanding of these things. I think in certain situations, yes, you give up your comfort, but that's when you've built a relationship. This is a complete stranger that you do not know, that you're willing to give your comfort up for in order for them to be comfortable. So I think just having like quick go-to statements that you can practice before you go out. So if you are in those positions, you can use such as like, if a guy comes up to you and he's chatting to you and you have a conversation with him, and just be like, oh, it was lovely chatting to you and it was really nice getting to know you, but I'm gonna go now. You've given yourself an exit. If he's like, oh, can I have your number? You just be like, oh, sorry, I'm kind of not in the market at the moment. I'm not looking for anyone at the moment. I kind of like just want to have a good chat and get to know you in this setting, and it's been a nice chat, so I just want to end it there. You're not rejecting someone. You're just putting a boundary in place so that you feel protected and safe. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you would feel. The first time it's so heart-wrenching because you feel like you're like really rejecting someone, but really you're not. You're just putting a boundary in place. Like, you wouldn't let a stranger into your house, so this boundary is the exact same thing as that. You're not letting a stranger into your space, and by giving them access to your number or your Instagram or whatever, you're giving them an into your space, and that is them, you allowing them in. So if you don't want that, then you put things in, you find ways in order to put them out. You could give them your Instagram if you feel more comfortable doing that, or you could give them an email, so that there's some sort of distance, because someone having your phone number or your a way to get in touch with you quite easily sometimes can feel invaded, like they're invading your space. So by putting these things in place, you're kind of putting some sort of distance between you and the person, and you're allowing yourself to vet them from a distance rather than them having access to your emails or access to your phone number or anything else. So it depends on what you feel comfortable with. Some people say no and then keep it moving. Some people give Instagrams and then maybe like have conversations through Instagram or ignore their Instagram requests. But it's just giving yourself that distance or that space so that you know, oh, actually, I don't need to give this person my number. I don't need to feel like I have to give something. But if you want to, you can in those words, and you can ease your way into it. You could first start off with giving an Instagram and then keeping it distant, and then get comfortable with having that narrative. And then when you get comfortable with saying no to people and get comfortable with rejecting people, you'll get to a point where you could say, no, actually, I don't even want to give you my Instagram. But just enjoying the moment in the moment and allowing them to see that you've enjoyed having that conversation with them in the moment, and that's okay, and you just want to leave it there. When I used to do this, I used to say I used to have a boyfriend even though I didn't, and I used to feel very convicted about it later on, because I didn't want it to seem like I was just blowing someone off, because I really did want to work on this area. So I started giving either my Instagram or just saying, oh, it was really nice meeting you, and lovely chatting to you, hope you have a nice day, and kept it moving. And a lot of the time there was no issues around it, and I think sometimes we expect there to be like a expectation of how someone's going to see us after that, but we have to be mindful that not everyone thinks like us. So it's okay for you to reject someone and then be okay with it, and it's okay for you to reject someone and then also being upset, but that's not on you to carry. It's for them to learn how to manage that. So you can only do what you can do in order to protect yourself from these things, and learning how to set those boundaries. There are so many books on boundaries nowadays, and so many books on how to empower yourself as a woman to navigate around awkward situations when it comes to men and other people. And I can put some of those book links in the comments so that you can also refer to. But I think the more we get comfortable with rejection, the more we get comfortable with who we are, the less these things kind of impact us and we feel it as much as we do, because we're understanding of what we are, we're understanding of what our expectations are as well. So when those things do come in, we have the tools, we have the language, we have the behaviors to kind of navigate in those situations. But this is just an overview of things. As I said, as a therapist, I would want to go deeper into this with you, around your ideas around men, your ideas around people pleasing, your ideas around boundaries, and have more conversations around these topics. But I think if you are doing the work by yourself and just reflecting on your own life, I think where I would start is maybe understanding why you feel like you have to say, you have to appease someone else and give up your comfort. The second thing I would also say is, am I doing this in other areas in my life? If we take out the context of men and romance, what other areas am I doing this in? Looking back on my life, if I could pinpoint other areas where I have felt like I needed to manage someone else's feelings, when have I done that? And then maybe list all of those things and see what the common themes are in those 3 questions. I think when you even just start off with those things, it gives you an insight on how you've been thinking about these things and how best you can kind of navigate through them. I think as people, sometimes we tend to pigeonhole ourselves into the way that we've always thought and the way we've always behaved. But in order to grow, sometimes we need to break out of those molds, and sometimes it is just looking at yourself and establishing what to do. So my answer to the question of should we just stop talking to men, the answer is no. It's find a way to be comfortable around talking to men, and if they are being charismatic and flirty and showing interest, find ways or navigate ways in order for you to feel comfortable navigating those conversations. But I think that all comes from your own self-esteem and your own confidence within yourself. When you have those things, it's so much easier to reject someone, knowing where you stand on where you are in life, and where you are in the situation, because I think that's the biggest thing. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves to be ourselves in those situations. But I hope that answers the question a little bit. If not, you could always book a consultation with me, 20-minute consultation, so we can have a chat around these topics and kind of give some more room for us to talk about this, and just and see if there's room for you to kind of work with me in this space, so that we can see where it goes. So on that note, guys, I'm gonna love and leave you. Thank you so much for joining in this conversation. If you have any comments or any ideas around this topic, please feel free to comment in the comment box. If you have any other questions as well, just put question and then let me know, so I can target it and maybe make another video based on the questions that you guys have. But I'm looking forward to interacting with you guys and getting to chat to you. So if you haven't already, please like, comment and subscribe. And thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. On that note, I'll see you later, guys. Take care. Bye.